glasses, Clark Kent.
Got to do it now. We are live, Fish. We are talking NFL and college football, the spreads, the COVID effect on spreads and bets, ratings, trends, and predictions. Our guests tonight are John Hardison from the podcast The Cost of Winning and Brian Torrison, the Dragon Movie Guy. You will get the Daily Fish Super Bowl picks also tonight, and we have week one picks that you can be a part of. And if you pick correctly throughout the season, you can host Daily Fish with us. And is social media derailing sports? Plus, we try to save baseball from itself again, but will they listen to us? Our Schmuck of the Week, we'll have some stomach and cholesterol problems, and who's got the swag as a Hall of Famer off the baseball diamond as well. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Daily Fish. John Daly here with Eric Snyder, a.k.a. Fish. We are coast to coast, coming to you from Las Vegas and Myrtle Beach. We talk sports, entertainment, and everything in between. Fish, you all set, buddy?
I'm ready to go, buddy.
All right, it's time for the grind. First, Super Bowl predictions. Fish, what do you got?
Okay, I kind of forecasted this in the past podcast, and I'm changing. Okay, I thought it was going to be a rematch of last year between the Kansas City Chiefs, John, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I'm switching. I'm picking the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love the fact that Tampa brought back everybody from last year. Their strength of schedule will allow them to go 12 or 13 wins, so that'll give them home field advantage. But I believe the Buffalo Bills were so close last year, and I think Josh Allen's going to step up from the Pro Bowl year he had, and he's going to contend for the MVP. And I think it's going to be enough with that defense to put them in the Super Bowl.
And Buffalo would finally win one if that's possible. All right, this is going to seem like a family pleaser from me, but I'm going with the Cleveland Browns, and it's not because my mother-in-law, Sarah, and my wife, Terry, who are both huge Browns fans. In reality, I really like this team. They made some great offseason acquisitions. Coach Kevin Stefanski, to me, is the next Belichick. What do you think of that one?
I don't know about that. I mean, he had a great year. Coach of the year in the COVID year, he was phenomenal. He was given a lot of shit because why did he get the job over Eric Bieniemy? He was a quarterback coach for Kirk Cousins. Goes into Cleveland and tears it up. And you know what? I give you that look, but I really the maturation of Baker Mayfield under this guy, that's what makes him a great coach. Is he a Belichick? That's tough to say. But okay, maybe he's on his way for that. Who knows?
All right, next, a new wrinkle to the Daily Fish podcast. Fish and I are going head-to-head on 5 NFL games every week. But please join us. Send us your picks of these 5 games at dailyfish1@gmail.com and do it before Friday. The viewer with the highest win total at the end of the regular season gets to host an entire Daily Fish podcast and choose the topics on that podcast. All right, here are the 5 games for week 1. Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Who do you got, Fish?
Well, I'm going to pull the upset. I know you're going to go. I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why not? I think Buffalo will go to the Super Bowl and possibly win. But you know what? They're going to have a couple of hiccups along the way. Everyone and their mother is picking Buffalo. I'm going to go with the Steelers. I think Ben Roethlisberger is going to be up for comeback player of the year. Not comeback player of the year. He lost 25 pounds. But, the way they ended the season last year, John, wasn't great. They would start out 11-0, lose out basically. Get their butts kicked by Cleveland in Pittsburgh. If you ask your wife and your mother-in-law, probably the biggest win Cleveland's had in 30 years. So I'm going with Pittsburgh.
All right. I'm going with Pittsburgh as well. So obviously we're agreeing on everything again. All right. Second game, Cleveland at Kansas City. Who you got?
You go first.
Okay. I got Kansas City. I think Kansas City is going to win this game. They'll be good coming out of the blocks. I like that they want to get back to the Super Bowl and they want to avenge what happened last year against the Bucs. So I'm going with them right out of the blocks.
I'm the underdog king. I just want to go against you, so I'll pick Cleveland. Why not? I mean, I don't think there's one pundit out there, including yourself, that would be shocked if Cleveland won. Cleveland should have won the game in the playoffs against them last year.
I agree.
And Mahomes went out, and that was a great win by Kansas City. But Cleveland gave them everything they can handle in that. So I'll go Cleveland. Why not?
Okay, next one. Green Bay at New Orleans. What do you got?
This one's being played in Jacksonville because of Hurricane Ida. I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints, and there's my comeback player of the year, Jameis Winston. I think he's going to thrive under Sean Payton's tutelage. and have a phenomenal season and not throw 6 pick sixes in the fourth quarter and take that Great Saint offense and turn them into a potential playoff team. I'm going with the Saints.
I like the Jameis pick of starting, that's for sure. But I'm going with Green Bay in the game. All right, next one.
Chargers. You like Jameson anyway, so what does it matter?
Absolutely, yeah, and you'll see that a little later on in the show. All right, next game is the LA Chargers at Washington. I'm going with Washington in this one. How about you, Fish?
I'm taking the Chargers. I mean, I hate to say I'm an AFC West geek, big-time Raider fan, but that Justin Herbert, he deserved Rookie of the Year last year, and I think they're going to go up against a tough defense, number 4 defense in the league last year, led by Chase Young, but I think the Chargers go in there and pull off an upset.
All right, and finally, Denver at the New York Football Giants. Who you got, Fish?
Well, it's so important for the Giants. I think Daniel Jones has to really prove himself in his 3rd year and have that kind of year that Josh Allen did with Buffalo and get that second contract. I'm going to go with the Giants. The Giants, I mean, there's talk today as of this broadcast that Saquon might not be at 100%. I'm still going with the Giants. I'm not sold on Denver until I see something with Teddy Bridgewater.
I'm exactly the same way, too. I'm going with the Giants. I am not sold on Denver yet. Again, folks, give us your picks for these 5 games. Email them to dailyfish1, the number 1, dailyfish1 at gmail.com. All right, next, the Tour Championship. Well, that was absolutely great. Patrick Cantley got hot at the right time. But what about the DeChambeau and Koepka tension? Could it hurt the Ryder Cup chemistry? I think not. Captain Steve Stricker is having the team out at Whistling Straits way ahead of time to iron out the bad competitive feelings and also to learn the course. Another advantage of having the PGA season end early and avoid conflicts with the NFL schedule. I think it's actually going to help the American team. What do you think, Fish?
I totally agree. Again, we're agreeing with each other. We're getting very boring, but I mean, just the fact that Cantley won $15 million this past weekend. What do you win? $14.5 million the entire year, wins 15. That's fantastic. He's a great story, and you hear the same names. You hear John Rahm. I know he's going to play in the European team in the Ryder Cup, right? And you hear Cantley, you hear DeChambeau. I think it's great. I think it's great for golf.
Yep, I agree. All right, next, a shout out to the Solheim Cup. The European women beat the U.S. this past weekend, but what a great event. And Fish, I hope a lot of guys watched it. Sure, the gals are very attractive, but guys can learn more about their game of golf from these gals than you can from the PGA. Do you hit the ball 350 yards like the guys on the tour? No, you don't. I learned this from playing in a couple of LPGA Pro-Ams. It was a ton of fun, and those gals, they can talk about your golf game much better. I really enjoy watching the ladies play.
Me too, but I don't want to get thrown off this podcast for being a sexist, but the attire they wear, it's just like, well, for me, it's like watching women's volleyball, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, very good. And finally on the grind, how to fix baseball. Is it blasphemy that the wild card playoff game is a 1-game event? This isn't football with a 16-game season. I mean, baseball has 10 times the games. Fish, how do we fix it?
But that's what I said. You just said it. You and I talked off camera about this, and I said, how can you have a 162-game season and it comes down to 1 game? That's a joke. How do you fix it? Well, it's too long of a season. People say start the season 5 days earlier, but get a 2 out of 3 series. I mean, it's a good chance that your Red Sox are going to play the Yankees in a 1-game series. And I know how you feel. I know you go back to 1978 when Bucky Dent hit that home run off Mike Torres. I don't think 2 great teams should settle in 1 game. It's not football. Football, you need 1 game. Go 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5. Who cares?
Yeah, but that game will have great ratings if that's what it is.
No, I don't. Yeah, guess what? That game's going to be on a Sunday and goes up against the NFL. Don't be so sure. Okay.
Absolutely. All right. All right, folks, questions or comments during the show, use the chat box or email us at dailyfish1@gmail.com or post to Facebook at daily.fish.5. Better yet, record yourself on your smartphone, short, tight, and also horizontal. Do it on your smartphone and send that video to dailyfish1@gmail.com. All right, it's time for some binge watching. Fish, what do you have?
Well, they kind of split this great TV show on Showtime called Billions up. They did the first 8, I want to say March of last year, and because of COVID, they stopped, and then they started this thing back up on Sunday night. I always said the 2 greatest anti-heroes, a guy that's a bad guy that you root for, is Tony Soprano of Sopranos, and this kid, Bobby Axelrod, that Damian Lewis plays Bobby Axelrod on Billions. He's the most likable hedge fund, absolute maniacal sociopath I've ever seen on TV. I'm a little concerned because Paul Giamatti must have lost 150 pounds in the last year. I hope he's not sick. No, I mean he looks. But the acting is brilliant, and this first show they had, the one that started off this season on Sunday, was so good that I wish I could binge the rest of them. But we got 7 more to go. But I'm watching Billions.
All right, great choice. I'm going with The Bridgertons. It's a romantic series, a bit steamy, from the 19th century, produced by Shonda Rhimes. It takes place in the Regency era of Great Britain in the late 1700s and early 1800s. That was actually at the time very mixed race, even among the dukes. Now, Regé-Jean Page is the lead actor in this. Women go absolutely nuts over him. Watch him, because he's my pick to be the next James Bond. What do you think of that, Fish?
Well, I've had women in the airport think you're Pierce Brosnan, but you blew that gig. I thought I was the next guy to be the next James Bond. Come on, you kidding me? You know,
yeah,
I hear a lot of. There's a lot of chatter that Idris Elba, he's a handsome looking guy, man. He could be the next James Bond, because Daniel Craig is starting to morph from 5'10" to like 5'6", and then might as well make Tom Cruise James Bond. But I don't want to get into that. I'm interested in watching this. I mean, you turn me on to the Dairy Girls, which you brought on the show last week. My wife and I binge watched all 6 episodes on the weekend. So if you say it, I'm watching it.
There you go. All right. Time for something fishy. Fish, what do we got here? We're going to talk about social media.
Yeah. Well, we always bring up that you and I grew up in a time when you really had to earn things. If your high school teacher said to you, John, I want you to do a book report on Ben Franklin, you had to go to the library and get an encyclopedia out. Now a school teacher could tell when a kid goes on their phone and uses Wikipedia to look up Ben Franklin. It's just that simple. Where it relates to sports that really pisses me off is the fact that Shelby Rogers lost in the 3rd round. And one of our Americans, she lost, got upset by Raducanu of Belgium. I forgot what country she's from. She said she got 9 million death threats, which is obviously exaggerated. But when an athlete got a death threat back when we were growing up, someone called the Yankees or called Dodger Stadium and said, I'm pissed off at Steve Garvey, or I'm pissed off at Reggie Jackson when they kill him. Now people are so brutal on these sites. In my business, the restaurant business, there's a site called Yelp. You and I could be in a restaurant, John. You and I could be in an Applebee's, okay? And say we were in a Denny's and the server was horrible and rude to us. And actual restaurants will write their employees up for what happens on Yelp, okay? Now social media is talking about the fact that, it's great to go to we showed this on the show. We can go to a Ram or Charger game and there's no security. And we showed that fight what happens, okay? Social media is demeaning. It's bullying. If you want to make a death threat to somebody, just go to their face and do it. Go to the game. Be Robert De Niro in the movie Fan when he went and screamed at Wesley Snipes and used all kind of expletives. I'm tired of our phones. I'm tired of people being pussies, whips, all right? Leave people alone. Stop bothering them. Stop creating all kinds of drama for these people. Naomi Osaka is staying away from sports and because she is bullied on social media, okay? You said this to me a million times. This device is great for a lot of things, okay? But it's also a bastard to a lot of things. And leave people alone. And if you're gonna, like I said, if you're gonna shout someone out, be accountable and do it to them in front of their face.
Yep. Don't hide behind the phone.
I'm ready for you.
Hide behind the phone. Absolutely. Very good. All right. And that is something fishy today. All right. Still ahead, our Schmuck of the Week, along with Who's Got the Swag. Time now for the Daily Fish Hook. America needs to schedule television sports around or away from popular events. Talk about that, Fish, because this is important, especially for ratings.
Absolutely. We're going to bring John Hardison on. John's great on the Winning Pod on his podcast. He's good on trends and talking about how sports could really succeed and not succeed. And John McEnroe, talking about the U.S. Open, which is going on right now in New York, talks about the fact that, why are we showing the U.S. Open, the finals, on the Sunday of the opening day of the National Football League? So you're telling people in America, okay, Novak Djokovic is probably the fun. He's one of the greatest stories. He's probably the greatest tennis player of all time. But he's going up against the Cleveland Browns and Kansas City Chiefs, or the Green Bay Packers and New Orleans Saints. All right, 4 marquee teams. Let me tell you what I'm watching. So John McEnroe says, why can't we put our event on a Tuesday night. Watch Daily Fish, the podcast, then watch us.
Absolutely.
Same thing. The NBA, John will talk about it. The NBA back in the 80s when Magic Johnson was playing, even until when Kobe started playing, the NBA is on ABC, right? ABC had zero sports broadcasting on Sundays during football season. They thought they put a game of the week on, John, to rival to go up against the NFL. Wrong move. It lasted 4 weeks because and this is games that were Lakers and Celtics with Magic and Bird, Kobe going against some of the great players in the league. It didn't work. Why can't you manage to show your sports? Put your egos aside. Do you agree with me, John? Put your egos aside and show your events when you can get the most coverage. That's all I want.
Yeah, it's smart programming if you do it that way. And unfortunately, for some reason, a lot of these sports just feel we got to do it on the weekends. We got to do it on Saturday and Sunday. And maybe that's not where people are going to be watching. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Again, we are Daily Fish. We're live on Facebook Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We air on DBNA television on Roku, Amazon Fire, and soon Apple TV. We stream 24/7 on the DBNA television website at dbnatelevision.com. Follow and like us on Facebook at daily.fish.5 and subscribe on YouTube. All right, now it's time for our Schmuck of the Week. Who's been schmucky this week, Fish?
I got to do the icon first. All right. I'm a big fan. My favorite sandwich on the planet is a tuna fish sandwich on rye bread with a piece of pepper jack cheese, and you mix the tuna fish in with the onions and the little celery bits. But this idiot, this schmuck ruined tuna fish sandwiches forever. Look at this moron. He drank a gallon at the Clemson game. I know Clemson only scored 3 points. He drank that whole thing of mayonnaise. All right. I can only imagine the dump that he took after that, number one. Number two, John, the ERs are already full of COVID patients or whatever. You want to sit there and you want to handle this guy? It's one thing we got that schmuck, Joey, what's-his-face, eating 75 hot dogs. This moron's going to pick a whole thing of mayonnaise. You ruined tuna fish sandwiches for me forever.
I agree. That's don't want to be near him. Plus, he's going to have cholesterol problems. All right, let's see who's got this week's Who's Got the Swag. Who are we toasting, Fish?
Oh, I love this one. This is Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter, man. You love Derek Jeter, right? Look at that fist bump right there. Derek Jeter was a successful player in the New York Yankees. He gained wealth and fame, right? In 1996, he established the Tom II Foundation, John, which focuses on developing activities and programs that keeps kids off alcohol and drugs and supports healthy lifestyles in Western Michigan, New York City. The foundation, since 1996, gives $1 million a year in donation to help kids having education and resources for healthier living. So I know you're a Red Sox fan, but this is a class act, this guy.
I agree with it. Even though I'm a Red Sox fan, he was one of my favorite players. So, I didn't mind us going up against him. I liked it when we beat him. But I always thought he was a class act, too. And so for our drink of the week now, we're going to toast Derek Jeter with our drink of the week. And what are we sipping here, Fish?
This, you know what? Being in the bar business, this is the Jameson and Ginger. This is the most popular cocktail that's being served nowadays, at least at Schmuck's Taverns. But I've talked to other bartenders. A Jameson and Ginger, you know what? If you're going to sit there and have a bratwurst during football season, sit in our bar and have some crab legs, that's what they're drinking. Jameson and Ginger.
Aye. Nothing like a good Irish drink. All right. The Daily Fish Drink of the Week is sponsored by Schmuck's Tavern in Vegas. Great seafood and drinks in 2 locations. Head to Schmuck's Tavern on North Durango on the northwest side of town where fish is overnight. Say Daily Fish Podcast, you get a free drink. Do it the next day, a free appetizer. That's Schmuck's Tavern. Check out Schmuck's Tavern on Facebook. All right, we're just getting started. Up next, we gab football with John Hardison from the podcast, The Cost of Winning, and Brian Torreson of The Dragon Movie Guy. First, let's tell you about MedSonics. If you're in Las Vegas, you're in pain, go to MedSonics. The sound wave technology relieves pain. Believe me, I've used it. It works for me. It's non-invasive. You sit there for 25 minutes and relax. Now, they're not going to say it cures anything. It doesn't, but it does relieve pain. The website is medsonics.com, medsonix.com. Al is the owner, inventor. Tell him Daily Fish sent you. All right, let's start tackling the NFL season and also a lot of football issues. We have 2 guests we've had on before. First, John Hardison from the podcast, The Cost of Winning, which focuses on fantasy sports, trends, and stats in all the pro leagues. You can find him on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcast. And also joining us is Brian Torreson of Dragon Movie Guy. You can find him on YouTube. He can talk about movies, but he also knows a lot about football. So we will get his insights as well. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you, Jeff. Brian was our first guest we ever had on a Daily Fish podcast, and I think it ruined his career because now we're 20 podcasts in. What the hell are you doing on these guys' podcasts, Brian? You're a great critic. All right, guys. I don't know if you heard our Super Bowl picks, but I changed. I talk to Brian all the time. Big fan of Shuck's Tavern. John too. Now they had, and they're great to be in our business. But I changed. I was trending Kansas City and Tampa Bay, and I changed, Brian. I went from Buffalo to Tampa Bay. What's your Super Bowl pitch, and give us a reason why? We'll start with you, Brian.
Well, it would be the Seahawks versus the Seahawks if they could play simultaneously in both leagues. But no, I would go Kansas City in the AFC, and I would go probably Tampa. Go back to back, Tampa Tom.
Wow.
John?
I'd have to say in the AFC, it's going to be Kansas City again. They're just a loaded team. They're just stacked. They haven't missed a beat over the last 2 seasons. That's why picking the AFC. In the NFC, I'm gonna go with the Rams. I just think they have a lot of talent. They finally have a quarterback that I think can actually sling it. He's on his last leg of really trying to make a name for himself. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, Matt Stafford. I love my guy, but I want to see him go to a better team, but they're a loaded team, especially if they can get one of these running backs that maybe didn't make the 53-man roster to shore it up. I think they've got a best shot.
Give me, you know what? Let's go with a couple of. I like to do this. I have my comeback player of the year is Jameis Winston. I think he's going to really thrive in that offense because I think Sean Payton's going to be a great tutor, and I don't think they've dropped off. I mean, I don't get Michael Thomas is going to be back in 6 weeks. But give me a couple teams that you think every year there's 3 or 4 teams, gentlemen, that make the playoffs that didn't the year before. So give me a couple teams, Brian, that you think either in the AFC or NFC they're going to make the playoffs that didn't last year. The same with you, John. We'll start with you, Brian.
I would say the Arizona Cardinals. They've been poised for a while now. I know a lot of people disagree on that, but I think with Kyler Murray entering his 3rd year, I think this is the year that we're going to see all of the Arizona Cardinals start to kind of come to the fore and get everything together in the NFC. In the AFC, it's a little bit murkier. I would say probably Miami making the playoffs, unless they made it last year. I do like them as an emerging team regardless. I do think them, with Tua and everything going on down there. My guy Myles Gaskin at Pride of Linwood High. I do think that the Miami Dolphins as well stand a shot at making the playoffs this year.
My choice is going to be the Pats. I think the Pats make it back. I think that they've loaded up on a lot of players over the offseason, picking up Jonnu Smith. They got the new kid, Mac Jones, I think is going to be really good. But they really put their money where their mouth is over the offseason. A lot of times we don't see the Pats spend a lot in free agency. And I mean, they pulled out the vault and just started handing out cash to everyone. In the NFC, I'm going to go with San Francisco. I think that they've got a lot of their pieces back. I do think the biggest issue with them trying to figure out now is which quarterback they're going to stick with. Either you stick with Garoppolo and you wait till you get a great trade, or you say, hey, Garoppolo's taking the backseat. We don't want to risk him getting injured because we want him to be great for a trade bait. And we just run with Lance and see what we got. But now that they got Bosa back, it's hard to bet against them.
Right. I don't like to bring this up because it's always a Debbie Downer, but it's going to affect. It's going to affect. Tom Brady thinks that COVID is going to affect the league worse than it did last year because last year they could postpone games, and we saw games, gentlemen, on Tuesday and Wednesday and Friday. Last year was the first year that there was NFL games on every day of the week. This year there's going to be forfeits. So, John, I go to you on this one because you're more in tune. And both John and Brian are based in Vegas. John Daly, they used to be, so they're more familiar with what goes on in the sports books. They're going to start testing guys on the days of the game. How's that going to affect the sports book, John? Let's say you test. I don't want to bring up any names, but the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals, you bet them, and he tests positive Sunday morning, and you find out when you get up out of your coffee that guy's not playing. Do you think the sportsbooks are going to refund people, or is there going to be a policy that says, you know what, you made that bet, you're shit out of luck?
Oh, the policy is going to be that you made the bet. You're just out of luck. I mean,
Right.
they're not trying. Vegas isn't forgiving. I do think that this season, I do agree with Tom Brady. They are going to crack down quite a bit, especially because he brought up a good point because he tested positive for COVID right after the Bucs parade. That this year, because you have so many people in the stadium and you're coming in contact with all these people, it's a higher probability that someone's going to get it. We look at Kirk Cousins in the quarterback room situation. He didn't want to get vaccinated. It's completely his choice, but Kelly Mound ends up testing positive, takes out possibly the whole quarterback room. So even with Cam Newton, that was a big situation too of possibly why he got cut, even though they hinted at it, they didn't confirm it. I think now you're either going to have to go to mobile quarterback rooms and you're going to have to just say you're only coming in on certain days to practice with the team, maybe rotate your quarterbacks. Or what you're going to have to do is what they're saying now. If you're not vaccinated, you get put into a smaller group, and maybe that smaller group runs plays. But for those guys that are out here right now, that like your Cole Beasleys or any of them that still don't want to get vaccinated, this could put them on the fringe of maybe getting traded or getting cut because you don't want to take the chance. Even the way that you travel is going to change now, where they might have a separate bus or plane for those who are unvaccinated that they don't want them to possibly spread it to anyone.
John, do you think it's going to hurt betting in Vegas just because there's going to be so many questions? You might see people maybe not putting as many big bets down.
I think so. I think that you're going to get your future picks just like normal. I don't think that's going to change, but I do think that the book the day of is going to be a lot more congested compared to those that are putting in bets before, because now you're waiting to the 11th hour to really see if that person is going to be on the field or not.
If you listen to the show before you guys came on, I have a big problem with sports trying to compete ratings-wise. I'll bring you in on this one, Brian, that some sports, John McEnroe is really upset. We said tennis, because why would you put the finals of the U.S. Open on the opening day of the NFL season, and then you cry you have no ratings, okay? And the NBA does that also. The NHL, I mean, you have so many sports going on at one time. So Major League Baseball decides that they're going to put most of their postseason games on Saturdays and Sundays, competing with college football and pro football. If you don't have a attractive matchup in baseball, I mean, isn't it all about the ratings? Doesn't TV run this whole thing, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. TV is king. It brings in the most revenue, or at least a big chunk of it. I think baseball's been struggling for years, though. It's been slowly dying. The price of tickets, all of that. But when you're pricing out people at the gate, they're not going to watch as much on TV. And it's an interesting tack to try and go on Saturday and Sunday and take on football, whether it's college or pro, head on. But yeah, I think that's a mistake. And the U.S. Open's not helping itself with the fact that there's no Americans in the top 8. So it's not helping things either.
Right. You're right. And what do you think, John? You think that you have to put the egos aside? And the NBA has been the biggest harbinger of trying to dip in to the NFL. And whether you don't have to like the NFL, but you have to appreciate the fact that they get the most ratings. And I've always said this, and I want you guys to chime in on this. I think with the advent of this, we talked about this earlier in the show, and instant gratification, the NFL is perfect. You only have 17 games. You watch your team. You move on. If you play fantasy, the red zone channel's going with all the ticker, whatever. You have so many games in these other sports. You have to find a way to market it. I'm at a you guys are younger. You guys are in your late 30s or 40s. John and I are in our 60s, and we're longing for the times in the 1970s when, God, it was so great to watch a game on TV. Now there's so much other crap on that. How do you attract an audience? How?
I think. Well, as Alec Baldwin said in Concussion, the NFL owns a day of the week. They own Sunday. No one should be able, which no one should try to compete with Sunday. College, you might have a little bit of a chance with on Saturday, just because it's a little bit more niche. You have one specific team, and depending on who that team is, it might be over with so you can see it. Their best bets are probably trying to run tournaments maybe a Thursday, Friday, especially because Friday there's not a whole lot on TV, not a whole lot to watch. But you're right. It is the instant gratification of sports. It's you only have 17 games now in the season, so you only have to focus on those 17 games, your team, and even then out of the 17 games, there's probably a few games where you're like, we probably don't have it. It's okay for me to miss maybe this one, but I do think it's hard for anybody else to compete, and I think that's why you see a lot of teams start to back off. Even the NBA, they'll run Wednesdays and Fridays, and Sundays they try to limit the amount of games that they have.
Yeah.
Are you guys good with the tweaking of sports? I'm always proud of the fact, and I sound like a big homer for the NFL. I love the way they tweak things, like, Brian, making an extra point from 11 yards to 33 yards. We've watched games where a guy misses an extra point from 33 yards. The problem I have with baseball, and I love baseball, my second favorite sport, gentlemen, is they're not tweaking it enough, okay? The game's too long, all right? We had Doug Flynn, who played with the Cincinnati Reds for years, on last week. And he just said, I said, can you fix baseball? And he goes, no, we can't fix baseball. There's no pitch clock. Football, hockey, there's no more ties in hockey. Basketball has done things to tweak the sport. Why isn't baseball tweaking their sport?
I believe the problem isn't necessarily tweaking the sport. I think it's the price of games, the price of access to games, the fact that games are not on free local television anymore. I grew up in Seattle, used to be able to watch Mariners games on Channel 11 and Channel 7 up there. That doesn't happen anymore. Everything's on Fox Sports or other prime cable outlets. Also, the cost of going to the games. You talk to a lot of people that grew up in New York and Chicago and Boston in the Northeast. They could just sneak into games sometimes in Yankee Stadium in the 70s and 80s. And you don't see that anymore. With all of these great luxury stadiums that we've built as a country, yeah, they're great, but they also price out a lot of the kids that cannot go to the games. And, like, for example, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I was 5 years old the last time Muhammad Ali fought a fight on free television. I was 9 when Mike Tyson won his first heavyweight title. I never watched Mike Tyson fight because as a 9-year-old, I couldn't afford pay-per-view. So I think it's access more than the actual sport itself. Personally, I love baseball. I love the fact that there's no clock. I love that it's so slow. They had to invent keeping score. I like all of that. Football different. It's a lot more adrenaline rush. I like that they tweak things. I don't particularly like the extra point. I don't like the fact that they've ruined kickoffs. But they got to keep trying something, and if it doesn't work, the NFL is going to throw it out and try something else. So,
right.
John, I think he hit it on the head. I just think that it's the pace of the game is too slow. It has to speed up. But I think that just like even in the NFL had to tweak its rules for more scoring, even though it's at a disadvantage to the NFL players or to the defenders. I still think it's the same thing with baseball. It goes too slow. You're sitting 9 innings waiting for a 2-1 game to happen. 2 years ago, when they changed the way the balls were made, people were hitting home runs left to right. People started wanting to watch it more. I think you got to run the score up.
Yeah, I agree. And Brian talked about the cost of games. You can see you look at in my background what my team is, and I'm appalled that the lowest price ticket they play Monday night against the Ravens, the Raiders, and the lowest price ticket is still going for $580. That's what I spent. I bought 2 tickets for $580 on the 45-yard line, season tickets for the Raiders in 1983. Okay, great, and I never paid more than like $300. I mean, it's crazy what it's going for. So that being said, there's a market out there because 1,800 Raiders season ticket holders sent their tickets back, guys, because you have to have a proof of vaccination to get into Allegiant. Those tickets went in 47 minutes, according to JT Brick on 920 local Las Vegas radio here. So there is a market for football, but what kind of family of 4 could afford those kind of tickets? $2,000 plus come on, family of 4 to go to a Raider game is at least $2,000, and then you got the concessions and the parking. Come on, you kidding?
No, you're right. I mean, it's crazy. I had a friend of mine just go to the Raiders Caesar opener, and he ended up paying $60 for parking. And I was like, how do you justify that? You can't.
Yeah, and again, Brian's a big Seahawks fan. We talk about it all the time. There was 10,000 Seahawks fans. I found out 10,000 at a preseason game. Well, Raider fans are going to find out, and we're not used to this in Oakland because there was such a 95% local fan base there in Oakland. Watch what happens when this Monday night. Watch when the Chiefs or Denver come into town. Be 25,000 fans there. So that's going to affect That's another thing that affects. Where's the loyalty? I don't think there are some stadiums in the league. I don't think you're going to see 25,000 fans of any team get into Seattle. I don't care. I know Pittsburgh travels, guys. But if even if the Raiders played in Seattle, I don't think you're seeing 25,000 fans there. Would you, Brian?
Probably not, as long as they're competitive. Yeah. There were times in the 90s, though. Man, it was that 30,000 season ticket waiting list went down to nothing for a few years there. Sure. But since Paul Allen bought the team, no. I mean, that's not going to happen up there. Also, it is interesting to note too that the city of Seattle recently imposed a mask mandate for outdoor stadiums like Seahawks Stadium. Even though that wasn't in place during the preseason, it will be there for the regular season and from here on out. So,
interesting. All right, this is Daly Fish. We're talking football. We have John Hardison from the podcast, The Cost of Winning, which focuses on fantasy sports trends and stats in all the pro leagues. You can find him on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. Also giving us his insight is Brian Torson of Dragon Movie Guy, and you can subscribe to him on YouTube as well. Hey, Brian, let me ask you this. With that mask mandate, is there going to be a problem for fans going, or is Seattle just kind of like, okay, hey, we're used to that?
Seattle's a really progressive city. It's a highly educated city. There hasn't been as much of a pushback on the vaccine as there is here in Vegas in particular. But, I mean, Seattle's a city, though, that since they lost to Sonics in 2008, Seattle's been sending 30,000 people to soccer games. So there's a huge appetite for sports in Seattle, and the Seahawks in particular. Last time I went home, there were Seahawks paraphernalia merchandise in like family restaurants that weren't sports themed. So the interest in the Seahawks up there is second to none in the sports landscape. So I don't think they'll have any problem drawing whatever the maximum allowable crowd is.
Yeah. Well, I want to segue here to something. I know how I was excited to see. Look, we're all going through this pandemic, but I was excited to see those full stands in college football this Saturday. I mean, Wisconsin, Penn State packed, my alma mater, University of Texas packed. I mean, did any games really shock you? The one that shocked me the most, John, Clemson scoring 3 points? Come on. You and I got a better chance of having 2 Super 10 hookers walk in the shucks tonight and flashing us. And Clemson, 3 points? You know what? That might have been Dabo Sweeney drinking that mayonnaise, because that was the biggest shocker to me. What about you guys? I'll start with you, John.
The biggest surprise for me was Notre Dame, Florida State. Great game. Didn't expect overtime, especially watching Florida State come back. Mackenzie Melton is who I was really surprised with and really proud of for everything that he went through at UCF to come out and just put on a show like that. I hope that he gets the starting position because he showed a lot of poise, showed a lot of character. Definitely the best game of the weekend for me.
Yeah. Me too. Absolutely. Brian, how about you?
For me, I'm a little bit of a homer here, but Washington ranked 20th in the country, losing at home to the Montana Grizzlies. They're not even a Division I team. On top of that, Washington State losing to another horrible team, and then UNLV, of course, losing to Eastern Washington, which is in Cheney, which I would never recommend anyone go to Cheney, but yeah, all three of the teams that I tend to follow losing at home to vastly inferior opponents that aren't even Division I schools in some cases. So, yeah, painful games to watch.
The ACC gentlemen had a really bad weekend. I mean, wow, it was bad. And you got some big matchups coming up. Oregon goes to Ohio State, and I thought another surprise for me. I mean, being an LA homer, I thought UCLA played really good against LSU. You know, LSU was 16 going in there, and there wasn't a pundit on the planet that gave the Bruins a chance, and they've been so horrible under Chip Kelly. And what's the guy's name, Brian? Dorian. The quarterback for UCLA was actually a stud here in Vegas at Bishop Gorman. Dorian Thompson, I can't. He's got 3 first names, so I don't trust him. I don't trust anyone with 2 first names. So he's got.
I usually go the opposite way. I usually trust like 2 first names, like Eddie George. It's the 2 last names that I don't trust, like Anderson Cooper. So I usually go the other way with 2 first names, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm guessing Bishop Gorman,
but yeah, he's a great quarterback at Gorman, one of the top recruits. He goes to UCLA. They couldn't snag him here, but I was happy with college football and the quality of play. John Hardison said it great. That Florida State and Notre Dame game was a classic. So John Hardison, tell us a little bit about your podcast and where we can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We focus on fantasy basketball, NBA, trends that are going on with NBA, and also a little bit of NFL as well. My partner Radu and I go back and forth, talk about different trends that are happening, injuries that might affect the game, and what are we seeing right now as well.
Okay. Now, I know for a fact, I talk to Brian all the time, Dragon Movie Guy, he critiques and he always says, go watch this movie. And I watch it, and it's fantastic. So talk about what you do, Brian, and you got any great stuff for us? We binge watch John and I every week, but give us something great to watch. And talk about Dragon Movie Guy.
Yeah, so I do a lot of movie reviews, trailer reactions. I do a lot of ranking videos. I just put out my top 10 movies for both September and the top 10 movies for the fall. But the fall video, the fall video is a little bit out of date because less than 12 hours after I put it out, they pushed back Top Gun Maverick. So my number 4 video is already out of date. But overall, I stand by my list. I also recommend going to see Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings in 3D. I'm not usually a huge upconverter fan of upconverting 2D films to 3D, but in this case, they did a really good job. And the second fight sequence, I don't want to spoil anything, but the second fight sequence really benefited from having 3D. So if you've not seen Shang-Chi yet, definitely go see it in 3D, and it's worth the extra $3-4.
Yeah, hit up Dragon Movie Guy and hit up John on his podcast. We're here. We're supporting these local guys that are working hard behind the computers, unlike John and myself. Tony Romo, there's a new podcast coming out. I'm not trying to sit there and take people over, but Rich Eisen's doing a podcast coming up. You'll appreciate this, Brian. You will too, John. With Joe Buck, Al Michaels, and Jim Nantz, who are the three voices basically of NBC, Fox, and CBS, right? Now, I don't begrudge anyone. If you can make money, make money. But Drew Brees said, quote, I wanted to retire because I wanted to make Tony Romo type money. Well, NBC gave him $3 million a year to be an analyst on the NBC Football Night American do Notre Dame games. Tony Romo makes $17.5 million a year, which is $5.5 million more than Buck, Nance, and Michaels, who I combined in the business probably over 120 years. I go, he either has to have the greatest agent. What do you think about that? And is that an incentive for people to get into journalism? Because I like Tony Romo, but I don't. Help, you guys are media guys. John, I'll go with you, Hardison, first. Figure that one out.
To me, it's a little bit absurd, but I think when you're the face of the most recognizable football franchise on the planet, and you've played there for that long, you can kind of command a little bit more money than these other guys, especially because you already have that notoriety coming in compared to those guys that had to work from the ground up to try and get that notoriety already made. People love them on CBS. I'm the guy that's the other way. I'll take Joe Buck, but, to each his own. But it's insane. But, somebody offered it to him and he signed a dotted line. I can't blame him.
Take the money. And before I get to Brian's reaction, but shouldn't the play-by-play announcer make more money than the analyst? I mean, Joe Buck does 70 events for Fox a year, maybe. And Romo's going to do – they don't have the Super Bowl this year, so he's going to do 17. He doesn't – look, CBS covers NCAA basketball. He doesn't do it. Golf, Vince doesn't do it. He's doing 19 events for CBS this year. Look, if it's any Tony Romo fans, I'm gonna get a lot of crap on the thing. It's nothing against him. Take the money. But I just think that a guy who does play-by-play should get more money than a guy who's doing 17 events. Brian, what do you think?
Well, I think it's like anything else. The top people in any field are going to garner more pay than the bottom 90% or the bottom 98%. It's just, there's so many ex-quarterbacks retiring from the NFL every year. For some reason, Tony Romo has been deemed more likable, as a better analyst, and he's getting paid for it. He's also been smart as a businessman, and he does those Corona commercials and those Skechers commercials. So he's put himself out there to a wider base than just sports fans. So he's done a good job of building his brand, I would guess, in an effort to be more like Shaq. When, Shaq's been retired for close to 20 years or close to 10 years at least. And Shaq is everywhere being a pitch man. So If Tony Romo can work his way into being the next Shaq, go for it. I don't really like or hate Tony Romo, but I do respect what he's built with his career for sure.
I actually like Romo, and what I thought was really distinctive that he did when he first came in there was that he kind of called and analyzed the plays like he was calling an audible. And I think that nobody had seen that before. And I think it captured a lot of people. And I think that just finding that little distinction and bringing that over to broadcasting, I think that actually helped him quite a bit. And I think that's what really launched him. What do you guys think?
Okay, wait. I'll jump on that. He got paid $17.5 million before he started doing that. He has a guaranteed contract. And again, I'm getting comments like crazy on here. What's all the hatred on Tony Romo? Great guy, probably. I'm just saying the fact that if I'm Chris Collinsworth and I'm Troy Aikman, guys been doing this for 15 years, and Drew Brees wants that kind of money. You're not getting it, Drew. And guess what? You were a better quarterback than Romo. But I'm sick of hearing the Romo shit all the time. Everyone's saying to me, who's a better quarterback? Who should go to the Hall of Fame, Romo or Don McNabb? McNabb went to what, 4 straight championship games and a Super Bowl? Romo was 1-6 in the playoffs. You know what Romo is? He's Matt Stafford. A lot of yards. That's it. I'm sorry. Well, he's got one more. And I just found Tony Romo a hatred thing. You're right. He's built a career. It's a brand. I'm a big fan of this. Okay. At one time, Johnny Manziel was the highest paid guy in the NFL in endorsements. What did he ever do? Anna Kournikova was the highest person in endorsements for a female. Never won a major. All right. Same with Sharapova. Never beat Serena Williams. Last thing we'll talk about, we got to wrap this up pretty soon. Are we getting to a thing, guys, now in sports that if you're just a popular guy or you're an a-hole, you're going to get the endorsements instead of being, you brought up Shaq earlier. Shaq's a star. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going to make, and he's got a great personality. He's a comedian. He's just a great figure. He deserves to make what he gets. But what are we getting? Where are we going with endorsements right now? Thank God you're seeing Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers doing State Farm commercials. But there was a time there you saw a lot of lousy people and just no talented people doing endorsements. Where are we headed?
It's the likability factor. I mean, that's what it comes down to. People like Tony Romo. I'm not a fan of Tony Romo, but if you go back to his career, he dated a lot of celebrities. He was always in the limelight. It's easy to pitch. A normal person off the street knows who Tony Romo is. They may not necessarily know who Drew Brees is, but they know Tony Romo dated Jessica Simpson. And for that little nugget of people that you're trying to sell to, it justifies him getting paid more. You're right. Drew Brees was the better quarterback. McNabb was the better quarterback. But even with all their winning, they're not as household names. Well, maybe McNabb and Chunky Soup, but not as much of a household name as Tony Romo.
Good call.
His mom, yeah.
And the fact that we still know
McNabb's? I'm sorry, Brian.
The fact that we still know the name Yoko Romo 10 years after they dated for a few months, it says something about the visibility of being the Cowboys quarterback and of being Tony Romo. So, yeah.
Well, Troy Aikman was a Cowboys quarterback too. He dated some starlets also, and Cynthia, what's her name, Morgan, the country star. I'm just saying, look again. This is no hatred towards Tony Romo. I just don't see the disparity. I just don't see it. I don't get it. So I don't get it.
I mean, Fish, I'll put it to you this way. They still, for a long time, were calling Joe Namath up, and even it was 30 years after he won with the Jets.
Yeah, wow.
Absolutely.
I mean, you use what you have when you have it, and some people are better at doing that than others. Look at George Foreman. George Foreman comes up with the Foreman grill. I'm sure he probably didn't invent it, but he puts his name on it. He sells the heck out of it, and people, he's made 9 figures, I've heard, off of the Foreman grill over the last 25 years. So
yeah,
use what you have when you have it, and those that use it better tend to make more money.
And how about Deion Sanders? I mean, he's out there quite a bit, and yet he's still coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's smart. Coach Prime. He's coining the phrase Coach Prime now. So, yeah, Deion Sanders always one of the smartest businessmen from the night of the draft, prime time.
I watched that game between Jackson State and Florida A&M over the weekend. Deion comes out. It's 90 degrees with 90% humidity. He's wearing a sweatshirt, and he's sweating through the sweatshirt. And the announcers are going crazy. All of a sudden, he comes back in the second half. He's wearing this nice blue tight thing. And he you know what? I love that guy. That guy, to me, one of the greatest defensive backs I've ever personally seen play ball. And I think he's going to be really successful coaching. And both of his sons play for him. One's a quarterback. So I'm rooting for him. Go prime time. All right. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about, basically, is soccer. I know. Just to piss Brian off.
It's not a sport.
Well, I just want to get into this, and we'll go from here. I know you don't like it, Brian, and I know, but you do realize it's the most popular sport in the world. But youth soccer right now, John Hardison, is taking over from youth baseball as far as popularity. And I think because it takes so long, hear me out, to go to the Major League Baseball level, to the levels of the minor leagues, you're seeing these kids now that are 18, 19 years old out of high school signing contracts in Europe, in Russia. Does soccer have more of appeal to the inner city and young kids instead of and of course it's big with women, the women's soccer team. Do you see it trending forward in the fact that in the next 10, 15 years, it can be more popular with baseball with our youth?
Yeah, absolutely. I really do think that it's trending that way, especially inner city. It's a cheaper game. It's a cheaper game. All you need is a ball in the field, and you can make it happen. You know, baseball, you need gloves, you need bats, you need a baseball diamond. There's more things that, especially if you look in the inner city, there's really no baseball fields. But there's football fields that you can use for soccer. There's open areas to play. I think that it's easier. And again, at the end of the day, like Primetime says, show me the money. You know, everybody wants to be paid. And when you look at these guys over in Europe, you're right. You know, $100 million contract isn't a huge number for them. These guys are making $300, $400 million for 10, 15 years of work. You know, and you look at baseball, and if you're not in the majors and you're in the minor league, you're barely making minimum wage. It's hard to justify wanting to go down the path of baseball.
Yeah. Brian has no comment.
Well, look, I mean, baseball's tough in its own right because in a lot of respects, a lot of Little League baseball is expensive. A lot of the top, young players have to hire coaches. I mean, there was talk about Cy Young Award winner Mark Davis just hanging out with kids and kids having their parents pay to hang out with Mark Davis just to learn what it's like to be a one-time Cy Young Award winner. So, yeah, I mean, soccer's more accessible in that route, and it is the most popular sport in the metric system countries. Here in America, we have more options. So,
I don't know about it. I disagree. I disagree. I think that when Lionel Messi takes a salary cut and he's making $120 million a year, Mahomes makes who's the highest paid athlete? Is it John Hardison? Is it Steph Curry or is it Mahomes? Making $45 million.
I think it's Pat Mahomes.
Okay. Well, Cristiano Ronaldo just started a contract for $160 million a year. Okay. You got guys going to the English Premier League like Tim Howard used to play, $40 million a year. These are Americans. I mean, they pay a lot of money in those leagues, especially in Russia and Europe and now South America. So there's avenues for our kids to go play in other countries that sport. You can play baseball in Japan. Yes, you're not making any money. You can play baseball in Australia. You're not making any money, or Dominican Republic. I think, like soccer or not, I think in the next 10 to 15 years, it's going to be another avenue for our kids to go out and make money.
Well, and if you look too, you go where the money is. You go where the market is. There were times where Lauren Jackson, when she was with the Seattle Storm, would get paid $100,000 just to show up for a weekend in Israel to play for an Israeli team. So if there's that kind of money versus, if there's more money overseas than there is here, of course, that's where people are going to go. And that's where they should go.
I will say this just to kind of add to it. I think that you're completely right. And when we look at some of the best brands that brand these people, there's a reason why Jordan Brand is branding soccer teams overseas versus baseball teams that are here.
Great point. Wow.
Good point. Absolutely. All right, we've been talking to John Hardison from the podcast Cost of Winning, which focuses on fantasy sports, trends, and stats, all in the pro leagues. You can find him on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcast. Also joining us has been Brian Torrison, the Dragon Movie Guy. Check him out and subscribe to him on YouTube. John and Brian, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights. Great stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck, Brian, with the Seahawks. John, who's your team real quick?
I'm a Lions fan, so this is a down year for us, but, you know, I got to ride the wave.
Nice knowing you, buddy.
All right, coming up, Fish and I wrap things up with, we might find an issue or two, or maybe we'll talk a little bit about next week's show, or maybe about our earlier show. All right, hey, you need a great golf getaway. The Myrtle Beach Golf Trail has dozens of courses along the Carolina coast. Set up an entire trip for yourself, your family, or a bunch of friends. The site is myrtlebeachgolftrail.com. You can play there year-round. All right, Fish, we mentioned the Myrtle Beach Golf Trail. I want to mention one thing here because I'm in the Myrtle Beach area here. One of the great courses down here is called Farmstead, and it's iconic because it has a par 6 18th hole. And I just found out yesterday, I just posted a story for news. Farmstead is closing, and it's in great shape. It's been sold to a developer that's going to put $1 million homes. A lot of golfers very upset here. So it's closing by the end of October. Folks, if you want to play a great course and you can get down to the Myrtle Beach area before the end of October, you should come down here and play that course. It's a really, really good one. So go to the myrtlebeachgolftrail.com and you can book your tee time there. But trust me, if you're a golfer and you love iconic courses, this is your last chance to play it. So I give it a whirl there. Hey, we've had a full night, haven't we, Fish?
That's great. A lot of fun, a lot of great stories. We did our 25th. You got to check it out, people. Go on YouTube, our Facebook pages. We had the 25th anniversary show for Real TV. Had some great stories about you and putting the show on, and learned a lot about the behind-the-scenes stuff of Real TV. And then having Brian on, I talked to Brian. Brian's a great bar guy to have on. He knows so much about sports entertainment. And he just, you know, when you get behind the bar and you get someone you can talk to that's intelligent, and most of my customers are intelligent, but most of my customers want to give up their nights tickets because they traded Fleury. Right? And then John's great, and like I said, our guest list is building every week, and it's fun. Right? And now we're heading. Hey man, we're in September. The NFL. The next time we do our podcast, we'll be checking out our picks.
Absolutely, and the great thing is that until February, there's not going to be a weekend without football.
Right. You know, and I'm really excited about the Dodgers and the Giants. I mean, I can only imagine if there's a chance. I was looking this up on my phone just now. There's a chance that the Yankees and the Red Sox, which I think are going to be the two wild card teams, play on a Tuesday night when we're doing the podcast. See that TV in back of you? You'll be like,
absolutely. This. Yeah, that's exactly what I'll be doing.
maybe we get. You better hope it's not the ninth inning and the Yankees have the bases loaded. You'll be like this going, Doug Flynn. So
well, it's going to be.
Take us out of here on a great night for the Daly Fish franchise.
Absolutely. All right. Remember, Daly Fish is live from Vegas and Myrtle Beach. Catch us on Facebook at daily.fish.5. Also, DBNA Television on Roku TV on DBNA, and also Amazon Fire TV on DBNA, and soon Apple TV. The DBNA television website, you can get us there at dbna, the letter A, television.com, and on YouTube. Write to us here at dailyfish1@gmail.com. Post to Facebook at daily.fish.5. Better yet, if you can record yourself on camera, ask us a question. Tell us what you want to possibly hear about. We might actually put you on the show. Make it short and quick, and email it to dailyfish1@gmail.com. All right, Fish. Well, we got some new stuff coming up next week. I know we're working on some stuff. We can't really say anything yet, but looking forward to it. We got some guests already planned out for weeks ahead, and we'll let you know about that.
Onward and up, my friend, and good luck with your picks. And love you, and I'll see you next Tuesday.
You too. Right back at you, buddy.